Chapter 12, Part 1 of Bill the Conqueror by P.G. Wodehouse. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. A visitor for Mr. Paradine. However true it may be that action is the spice of life, there is no denying that an occasional dose of the soothing syrup of tranquillity makes a pleasant change, and so, after the scenes, always restless and bordering at times on actual violence, which, in order to keep the record straight, the historian of the fortunes of Bill West has just been compelled to describe, it is agreeable to turn aside and relax for a while in an atmosphere of cloistered and scholastic calm. About a month after the departure of Flick Sheridan from Southampton, we find ourselves once more in the home of Mr. Cooley Paradine at Westbury, Long Island, in a small upper room looking out over the sunlit garden. It is the room dedicated to the studies of Mr. Paradine's adopted son, Horace, and at the moment when we enter it, the hard-boiled lad is receiving a lesson in the French language from Mr. Sherman Bastable, his tutor. Yes, still his tutor. It is true that a few weeks ago Mr. Bastable definitely announced that not even so substantial a sum as $1 million would be sufficient to induce him to continue his duties. But the statements a man makes in the first flush of realization that the inside brim of his hat has been doctored with glue are not always carried out when scissors and warm water have done their work and reason resumed its sway. Scarcely half an hour after the hat had been clipped and scoured off his forehead, Mr. Bastable, who had begun by sneering at a cool million, had reduced his terms so considerably that he actually consented to remain in office for a mere additional $50 per month. We find him, consequently, still doing business at the old stand. But the Sherman Bastable, who was now endeavoring to teach Horace French, was a very different man from the genial and juicily enthusiastic young fellow of a few weeks back. He was now a soured and suspicious despot, who, fortified by instructions from his employer to stand no nonsense, had taken on a cold implacability which was having the gravest effects on the latter's comfort. Of this change in his disposition he gave proof at this very moment. Seeing that Horace, like the room in which he sat, was looking out over the sunlit garden, he banged the table with a forceful fist. "Attend, can't you?" he cried. "You aren't listening to a word I'm saying." "All right, said Horace plaintively. These passages were beginning to irk him more and more. A free child of the underworld, he had taken unkindly to discipline, and it seemed to him sometimes as though Mr. Bastable had developed all the less amiable characteristics of the late Simon Legree. He removed his gaze from the shady lawn and gaped cavernously. "Don't yawn!" thundered Mr. Bastable. "Oh, all right." "And don't say 'all right,'" boomed the tutor, who had a retentive memory and could never look at his little charge even now without a twinge across the forehead. "When I speak to you, say 'Yes, sir,' smartly and respectfully." "Yes, sir," said Horace. A purist might have criticized the smartness and respectfulness of his delivery, but the actual words were up to sample, and the tutor appeared satisfied. At any rate, he returned to the task in hand. "Indefinite articles," said Mr. Bastable, resuming. "A or an is translated into French by un before a masculine noun, as, for example, un homme, a man, un oiseau, a bird." "There's a Boyd on that tree," interjected Horace, switching abruptly from foreign languages to nature study. Mr. Bastable favored him with a basilisk glare. "Attend to your work," he growled. "And don't say Boyd. It's a bird." "Well, it's making a noise like a Boyd," argued Horace. "And un before a feminine noun, such as dame," proceeded the tutor. "Une dame, a lady. Une allumette, a match. Une histoire, a story. Une plume, a pen. Do you get that?" "I suppose so." "What do you mean, you suppose so?" "Well," said Horace candidly, "it sounds to me a good deal like apple sauce. Seems there ain't no sense in it." The tutor clutched his thinning hair and groaned hollowly. That extra $50 a month had raised his salary to a very respectable figure, but it frequently occurred to him that he was receiving but trivial payment for what he had to endure. "Seems like there ain't no sense in it?" he echoed despairingly. "Can't you see that's not grammar?" "I don't know about its being grammar," retorted Horace with spirit. "It gets across, don't it?" "Sir," prompted Mr. Bastable automatically. "Sir." "And don't say don't it. Say doesn't it, or does it not?" He eyed his pupil wanly. The weather was warm, and the strain beginning to tell on his sensitive nerves. "You're incorrigible. I don't know what's to be done with you. You take absolutely no interest in your work. I should have thought that you would have some sense of your position, your chances and opportunities." "Oh, I know," said Horace wearily. "One ought to grasp one's opportunities and try to improve oneself at least onct." "Don't say onct." "Oh, all right." "Yes, sir," emended Mr. Bastable, eyeing him balefully. "Yes, sir." The tutor flung himself back in his chair, which creaked protestingly. "Do you realize that yours is a position which thousands of boys would give their eyes to be in?" "Can't you see that's not grammar?" said Horace. Much as he disliked these séances, it happened now and then that bits of them stuck in his mind. "Oughtn't to end a sentence with in. You put me right, so I don't mind putting you right. Had you that time. Hot dog!" he said, with a complacency which made the tutor feel, not for the first time, that his favorite character in history was Herod the Great. "You wised me up to that yourself." Every tutor is a statesman at heart. He has to be. Mr. Bastable, prudently realizing the danger of his position, instituted a counter-attack by assailing his pupil's pronunciation. "I wish you would learn to speak properly," he said with hauteur. "Your accent is abominable. Here." He pulled out a massive book. "It's no good trying to teach you French till you can talk English. Read a page or two of this aloud, and try to do it like a human being, and not—" he searched his mind for an adequate simile—"and not like a caddy at a third-rate golf course." "What's wrong with caddies?" demanded Horace, who was intimate with several, and in leisure moments had occasionally done a bit in that line himself. "Go on, don't waste time," said Mr. Bastable, refusing to be diverted to an argument. "Begin at the top of page 98. Horace took the book. It was entitled Beacon Lights of History, Volume 2, The Middle Ages, with a disrelish which he made no attempt to conceal. "It was at this period," he began sourly. "Period?" "It was at this period when the convents of Europe—" "Europe!" "I said Europe," protested Horace, aggrieved. "It was at this period when the convents of Europe rejoiced in ample possessions, and their churches rivaled cathedrals." cathedrals in size and magnificence. That St. Bernard—" He broke off, mildly interested for the first time. "Say, I knew a gink that had a St. Bernard. Big, hairy dog with red eyes." "Get on," said Mr. Bastable coldly. "St. Bernard, the greatest and best representative of medieval monasticism." "Gad," said Horace under his breath, tenderly massaging his aching jaw. "Was born 1091 at Fontaine in Burgundy. He belonged to a noble family. His mother had 6 sons and a daughter, whom she early consecrated to the Lord. Bernard was the 3rd son, a beautiful, delicate, refined young man, tall, with flaxen hair, fair complexion, and blue eyes, from which shone a superhuman simplicity and purity." He stopped, revolted. He did not know much about saints, but he knew what he liked, and something told him that he was not going to like St. Bernard. "Sounds like a cake-eater," he sniffed. Mr. Bastable was just drawing himself together for a Legree-like reproof, when there was a gentle tap at the door. "Pardon me for interrupting, sir," said Roberts, the butler, hovering delicately on the threshold. "You haven't made me mad, Bobby," Horace assured him gratefully. "What is it, Roberts?" "Professor Appleby has called to see Master Horace, sir. Mr. Paradine would be glad if you would allow him to step down to the library for a moment." His announcement evoked universal enthusiasm. Horace beamed upon him, as people must have beamed on the man who brought the good news from Ghent to Aix. Nor was Mr. Bastable displeased. He was conscientious, and had been prepared to continue his task for another hour, but the thought of being relieved of Horace's society gave him the sensations of a reprieved convict. "Certainly," he said. "I'm not going to put up any stiff argument neither," declared Horace. He trotted joyfully out of the prison chamber. Mr. Bastable, with the air of one from whose shoulders there has been removed an intolerable weight, lit a cigarette and put his feet on the table. The arrival, some 10 minutes before, of the venerable Professor Appleby had surprised Mr. Paradine at his customary occupation of fiddling about with the books in his library. He had just scuttled up the ladder to one of the top shelves, and dumped on his already congested table a pile of mouldering volumes, when Roberts brought the news of the visitor's advent. For a moment Mr. Paradine felt a little like a dog who has been hauled off a bone, but his native courtesy asserted itself, and it was with a cordial smile that he greeted the Professor when he made his entry. "Nice of you to look in," he said. "I chanced to be in the neighbourhood," said Professor Appleby, "and I thought I might venture to call and inquire after the little lad. He is busy at his studies, no doubt?" "I imagine so. Won't you take a seat?" "Thank you, my dear Paradine, thank you." Professor Appleby relaxed in a chair with the contented sigh of a man who is not in the best condition. He tapped his domed brow with a silk handkerchief, and combed out his white beard with a delicate forefinger. He was looking more like a benevolent minor prophet than ever. His mild eyes wandered to the bookshelves, and there came into them a sudden predatory gleam, which vanished almost instantly, to be replaced by their habitual expression of calm good-will. "A warm day," he observed. "Very. Do you find it close in here?" "Not at all," said Professor Appleby. "Not at all. I enjoy the peculiar and distinctive scent of old books. I never find it stuffy in a library." This was so exactly what Mr. Paradine felt himself that his affection for his visitor deepened. "And how is Horace?" inquired the Professor. "Physically," said Mr. Paradine, "he could not be better, but—" Professor Appleby raised a deprecating hand. "I know what you are going to say, my dear Paradine. I know just what you are going to say. It was on the tip of your tongue to tell me that the little lad is not taking kindly to his studies." "Not very kindly," admitted Mr. Paradine. "Mr. Bastable, his tutor, reports that it is difficult to get him to take a real interest." "I expected as much. No enthusiasm?" "None." "It will come," said the Professor. "It will come. We must have patience, Paradine, patience. We must emulate the assiduity of the polyp that builds the coral reef. I had anticipated this. It was on my advice that you adopted a totally untutored lad, a child of the people, and I still maintain that I was right in giving you that advice. How much better, even though progress may at first be slow, to have a boy like this to work upon, a boy whose mind is not a palimpsest that has been scrawled over by other hands. You have nothing to worry about. It would have been perfectly easy, no doubt, for you to have adopted a son from some family of the gentlefolk, but in my opinion, and I know I am right, the results would have been far less satisfactory. Horace is virgin soil. He has not been ploughed by others. Sooner or later you will find that you will reap your reward. Sooner or later, I say it confidently, you will find that by the mere process of living in your home, the little lad is beginning to imitate your mental processes, to acquire your own tastes." "It's odd that you should say that," said Mr. Paradine thoughtfully. "Not odd," corrected the Professor with a gentle smile. "I based my observation on a knowledge of psychology which has rarely led me astray. But why did it strike you as peculiar? Am I to infer that he has already begun to show signs of this?" "As a matter of fact, he has. It is a remarkable fact, Appleby, but the only thing outside his meals in which Horace shows the slightest interest is this library of mine." The Professor coughed a gentle cough, and gazed at the ceiling with a far-away look in his eyes. "Indeed," he said softly. "He is always pottering in here, and wanting to know which of my books are the rarest and most valuable." "The dawning intelligence. The little mind begins to expand, to develop, like a plant groping out for the sunshine." "It makes me feel that there may be hope for him." "I," said the Professor, "have great hopes of Horace. I had, right from the beginning." "Perhaps after he has had a year or two of school in England." "What!" cried Professor Appleby. A moment before it would have seemed impossible that anything could disturb the calm serenity of this venerable man. But now he was sitting forward on the edge of his chair, staring at his host in the most manifest concern. His lower jaw had fallen, and his white beard wobbled agitatedly. "Your are not sending him to school in England?" he gasped. "Taking him," corrected Mr. Paradine. "I am sailing in a few days to pay a long-delayed visit to an old friend of mine, Sinclair Hammond. I intend to take Horace with me and enter him at one of the large English schools, possibly Winchester. Hammond was at Winchester." "But is this wise? Is it prudent?" "Well, I am going to do it," said Mr. Paradine, with a touch of that belligerent manner which had so often caused adverse comment in the family. Professor Appleby pulled at his beard. His discomposure was plain. Mr. Paradine, looking at him, was conscious of a passing wonder as to why he should take the news so hardly. "But the education a boy gets at these English schools! Surely it has become a commonplace that it is too superficial, too machine-like. Read all these novels of the younger English writers." "I never read novels," said Mr. Paradine with a slight shudder. "And then again, this visit to England. Are you not afraid to leave your books here, your priceless books, entirely unguarded?" Mr. Paradine uttered an amused laugh, which sounded to his visitor like a knell. "You talk as if I had never left the house before. I am always travelling. I was travelling when I met you. And besides, if you think I leave my books unguarded, try to get through the steel shutters over those windows. Yes, and try to pick your way through that door. I had this room specially constructed. It's like a safe." "I see," said Professor Appleby unhappily. "In any case, my library is insured, and I'm taking all the most valuable of my books with me to England." "Eh?" cried the professor, starting as if the fingers combing his beard had suddenly encountered a snake. "Taking them with you?" "Yes. Hammond is a collector, too. He will be just as excited over these books as if they belonged to himself." "Will he?" said the professor, brightening like a summer sky when the sun comes out from behind a cloud. "Will he indeed?" "Yes, he's that sort of man, one of those rare collectors who have no small jealousies." "He sounds delightful." "Yes, you would like Hammond." "I am sure I should. Of course, when you are in England, you will keep these books at some bank or safe deposit?" "No, I see no reason for that. Books are not like jewelry. Their value is not obvious to the lay eye. If any burglar invades Hammond's house at Wimbledon, he would hardly have the intelligence to take away what to him would be merely a bundle of dilapidated books." "True." "I shall keep them in my bedroom in an ordinary suitcase." "An excellent notion. Ah," said the professor, breaking off, "here is our young friend. Well, Horace?" "Hallo," said that youth. Professor Appleby glanced at his watch. "Good gracious, I had no idea how time had flown. I ought to go immediately. I shall just be able to catch a good train. Perhaps the little lad might be spared from his studies to accompany me to the station? Thank you. Get your hat, then, Horace. We must be hurrying." In spite of the statement that he had need for haste, it was at a leisurely pace that Professor Appleby started down the drive. He walked as if troubled with corns, and as he went spoke earnestly to his young companion. "Kid," said Professor Appleby, "it's a lucky thing I happened to look in this afternoon. Do you know what's happened? That old June bug back there doesn't seem able to stick in one spot for a couple of days on end. He's taken you over to England right away." Horace stopped in his tracks, displaying as great a concern at the news as the professor himself had shown a short while back in the library. "Taken me to England? What for?" to put you in school over there." "Who, me?" "Yes, you." "Well, wouldn't that jar you?" cried Horace, in deep disgust. "I might have known there was a catch to this thing of getting me adopted. It's bad enough here, with everybody picking on me, and me having to spend all day learning French and everything. But gee, I'd always got my getaway to look forward to. But going to school—" He frowned resolutely. "Say, listen, I ain't going to no school. See? I ain't going to no school, not in England nor anywheres. "You talk too much," said Professor Appleby curtly. "If you'll give me a chance to get a word in, I'll tell you something. You won't have to go to any school. The old man's going over to England to visit another book-collecting nut, and he's taken a stack of his best books with him. You'll be able to make a quick clean-up and fade out. He's going to keep the stuff in his bedroom in a suitcase." "Yes, he is," said Horace derisively. "That's likely, ain't it, when he locks the things up here as if they was gold dust?" "He is, I tell you. He told me so himself. He thinks there's no chance of anybody trying for them when he's there. And why should they? No ordinary Yank who happens to blow into a house is going to load himself up with a bunch of books." "Something in that," agreed Horace. "I'll have Joe go over the same time as you do, and you and he can get together and fix things." "All right," said Horace. "Say, that's a pretty girl." The object of his commendation, a slim girl with fair hair and a boyish figure, was walking rather wearily up the road that led from the station. He eyed her critically as she passed, and so confirmed in his good opinion was he by this closer inspection that he stood gazing over his shoulder at her receding form, and was awarded by his austere companion a disciplinary thump on the head. "You've no time for rubbering at girls," said Professor Appleby, like a minor prophet rebuking the sins of the people. "You just listen to me when I'm talking to you. I want to get this thing straight in your ivory skull." "Oh, all right," said Horace. Chapter 12, Part 1.